I get a lot of stick for some of my predictions, right? People make TikToks about me and they get big volume of numbers without crediting me because of some wayward predictions that I've made in the past.
Yeah.
There are, however, some victories on the predictions. Aston Villa's season was predicted by me. Unai Emery's
What, second?
I predicted them to get into the Champions League.
Did you really?
I predicted them to get into the Champions League.
Wow.
Yeah, I predicted Aston Villa. I also made a big point of Aston Villa finishing above Newcastle when everyone went crazy. So that. But the other one, and I was on the clip with you actually, where I got nothing but stick. I said that Eddie Howe could struggle this season. I could see him being sacked. It's now got to the stage, particularly with Mourinho's availability, that this could actually become true. My prediction of Eddie Howe being sacked in this season could actually be true. Because let's face it, I think he's made a pig's ear of it.
Oh, it's a really hard debate.
Is it? He's been rubbish. No, it isn't hard. It isn't hard. Be a man of principle and honour like me. Say the truth. Eddie Howe has been atrocious this season. He has got so much wrong. Their Champions League campaign, which weirdly, for no reason whatsoever, is portrayed as being a success. I have absolutely no comprehension.
That is true, yeah.
Didn't they do well when they slapped up Paris Saint-Germain? All right, they won one game. They beat the razzle-dazzle Paris Saint-Germain, a team that are famous for having an underbelly, a team that are famous for being vulnerable, a team that are famous for going to a stadium like St James's Park when it's raucous, when the rain's falling.
Yeah.
They were always going to capitulate because that's what they do. That Champions League campaign, and people will always position it, group of death.
Yeah.
Bollocks, group of death. Bollocks.
It is a group.
It's not
a group of death. AC Milan. Like, I know they're not the same players.
You need to consult your OED, your Oxford English Dictionary, and find out what the word death means. Group of death. There's nothing fearsome about Borussia Dortmund.
It is.
Graham Potter's Chelsea, not Borussia Dortmund out of the European Cup.
But Graham Potter's Chelsea are a Chelsea that have won 2 European Cups. I know it's a transition side. I'm not saying it's got Frank Lampard in it.
What's happening, everyone? I'm terribly sorry to intrude on your enjoyment of the clip, but I have something very important to tell you. This clip is brought to you by Super Sick. All you need to do to win £250,000 is to predict 6 football scores correctly. That's it. It really is that simple. And guess what? The added bonus is it will not even cost you a penny. Simply download the Super Six app totally for free, predict 6 football scores correctly, and you will win some big boy money. £250,000 in your skyrocket for 6 scores. Can't ask for more than that. Enjoy the rest of the clip.
But you are someone that I know inside out with this opinion would have that football history matters. And if you go to AC Milan, even if they've got 11 kids running around, the weight of going to the AC Milan in a Champions League game is huge.
Not for Newcastle.
And it took Man City 6-7 years to get good at those games.
Remember what Newcastle did to AC Milan in the summer? They took their best player. Newcastle went into that game as favourites. I don't care. They went into that game as favourites.
Don't you believe in the weight of the Champions League?
Yeah, I do. I believe that.
That side takes a while to get into it.
I believe that AC Milan.
It took you 6 years, 7 years to win it.
I believe that, mate. AC Milan compared to Newcastle, the chalk and cheese, right? AC Milan are a far incomparable institution, but Newcastle United went into that particular fixture as favourites. I believe that Newcastle United, under their new ownership, in the way that it was inevitable Man City would one day win a Champions League, Newcastle, under their new ownership, one day will win a Champions League. They are moving on up. They've taken AC Milan's best player. So the fact that they had Paris Saint-Germain, famous underbelly, Borussia Dortmund, launched out the cup by Graham Potter's Chelsea, and AC Milan, who, let's face it, Italian football, sadly, I love Italian football. It's my favourite league apart from the Premier League. I support Italian teams, you know what I mean? Sampdoria are a team I like. It's a shadow of what it was.
I think we have to be fair, though, Roars. I think we have to be fair, Roars.
You're being a coward.
No, I'm not.
He got it wrong.
Can I at least give you the context?
No, you can't.
Man City's side that faced the Champions League group, I think we had Villarreal, I think we had Napoli. Were Man City with Aguero, Yaya, company better than the Napoli side that I think we lost to away? I'm pretty sure we did. Or at least Villarreal. We didn't get out of the group in our first season. And we had a side that just won the FA Cup. And that season, the Aguero goal, we win the Premier League. But in that season, we got dumped out into the Europa League that season. So, look, you know me. I'm going to have a middle opinion about it.
I would have criticised
that.
Yeah,
exactly. So, City now get out of our Champions League group without even thinking about it, because it took us 6, 7, 8 years to be in pot one. It took us 6, 7, 8 years to know what the away days are like, to get transitioned in. It took us actually to figure out that Mancini isn't a good European manager in terms of Champions League football, and we had to bring in Pellegrini. Got us closer, and so did Pep Guardiola.
Okay, they didn't even get into the Europa League. That's got to be unacceptable,
Because
even by your very generous.
They're in the group of death.
Mate, what do you love Newcastle so much for?
I want to defend them before I criticise what I saw against obviously my club, Man City, in the comeback. We'll cover that in a minute. But I'm just saying the context of the Champions League group that you draw upon is three massive sides. And you talk about Dortmund getting dumped out of the Champions League last season. They qualified this season.
This opinion winds me up. I cannot have it positioned that Newcastle did well in the Champions League. They won one game.
I'm not saying that, am I? Am I saying that? I'm not saying they did well. I never said they did well.
You're basically
I'm saying the context is there.
You're creating
context is important.
You're creating
for Newcastle.
a world where it's acceptable that they went out of the Champions League.
I didn't say it's acceptable.
At their first two games, didn't they get a draw away in Milan and beat Paris Saint-Germain? 4 points out of the first 6.
Yeah, and the way they managed the group after that was poor. But context is important, Roars. Context is important.
Context is important.
And I'll give you the context.
Give me the context.
They got a kid in midfield, Miley. He's essentially 16 to 18 years old, okay? They got a forward line still consisting of Almiron. They've still got Lascelles playing a lot of football. They got a second choice keeper, not even their first choice keeper. We see what happens when Arsenal, when Chelsea, when Man United lose their first choice keeper through injury in the last 5-10 years. That enough can be an excuse. Liverpool fell off when Virgil van Dijk got injured for 6 months, for 9 months. They fell off. They're a great institution with Jurgen Klopp.
They were criticised for it.
Eddie Howe's dealing with multiple injuries. And I'm critical a little bit of how they managed being 2-1 up against Man City. But they got so many players that shouldn't be playing for Newcastle at that level. Dan Burns playing at Parc de Paris.
The injuries are ridiculous, right? Also, Dan Burns scored against Paris. You know,
he shouldn't be playing the Champions League.
I kind of agree with you, but I don't understand why when other clubs get injuries. So, for example, when Virgil van Dijk was out for Liverpool, although it was a reason to understand why their form suffered, it wasn't an excuse. It's a team game. Everyone gets injuries, and you've got to get on with it.
Liverpool use it as an excuse.
Liverpool were particularly unlucky in that injury-ravaged season. But basically, it's football, right?
They dropped out of the Champions League.
But I don't think that people were very forgiving towards Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool team that were injured. People said it's not an excuse.
Fine. Yeah.
When other teams have injuries, I don't think people give it as an excuse. I don't think people accept it as an excuse. Whereas when Newcastle have injuries, people immediately go, well, what can they do? They've got injuries. People are very kind to Newcastle.
I'm not being kind because
you are.
I'm not being kind to Newcastle. I'm being fair. You've got to be fair.
Eddie Howe's lost 6 out of 7 games. Defend that one, lover boy. Go on, defend that one. 6 out of 7 defeats. 6 out of 7.
If you'd ask me, Lawrence, what's your opinion on the Man City loss, the most recent defeat? I'll give you a fair and honest opinion about that. But we did talk about the Champions League. They're in a group of death. They came bottom because they've got no Champions League experience. They've got Miguel Almiron up front with some great players in there. Isaac, Bruno, Shah's been good this season. And Botman's been injured, by the way. They're not there yet to get out of the Champions League group. They're not there yet.
They are.
They're not there yet.
This is wrong. This is a factually wrong opinion.
Why did it take Chelsea? Okay, you did well with Mourinho when he first got you back into the Champions League consistently. I know Ranieri got you there as well. But it still took you 6, 7, 8 years to really get to those finals and win it eventually. Yeah. Same with Man City. But so why can't Newcastle have had a slower transition than you?
In 99, we beat Barcelona 3-1 in a quarter final.
I'm talking about the start of the Abramovich era. It took you 6, 7 years.
Abramovich's first year, we got to the semi-final. We beat Arsenal in the quarters.
But you had an injection of cash and money and players that instantly transformed your side into one of the great sides ever. Newcastle haven't had that ability. They spent a lot of money. They haven't been able to transform the side in the same way that me or you could with our clubs.
I think they have.
Really?
You look at Kieran Trippier, Alexander Isak, Botman at the back. There's the keeper Pope. There's a lot of money spent on that team that should have elevated it. And if you get 4 points out of the first 2 games, they should have gone through the group. Park the Champions League now, because I'm right, you're wrong. Park the Champions League now. 6 out of 7 defeats. They're below Chelsea in the league. You know how you like to pop at Chelsea?
Yeah.
They're below.
I don't like to pop at Chelsea.
You do.
I think you're a fantastic club.
Why are you full of lies?
I think you're a fantastic club.
You're full of lies. They are now below Chelsea in the league.
So we can talk about the City game. I mean, the way they managed the final 20 minutes against City, it was shocking. And it felt like, you remember when Bournemouth got relegated with Eddie Howe? I know they had injuries, very, very similar situation. The way Bournemouth, when they got relegated with Eddie Howe, showed a lot of quality. Really decent side to get relegated in terms of what they could show on the pitch. They just lose their heads for 20 minutes and they concede 3 or 4. They lose 5-6-0.
Okay, I'm going to make an excuse for them now. Kevin De Bruyne, man. What can you do?
Genius,
realistically,
man.
You know when he comes on like that? Do you know when he came on? He had that first touch, the free kick. His first touch when he came on, there was a free kick, right? I was like, this is it. This is obviously going in the back of the net. And that's what he does, I think. Was it Klopp? I can't remember who said it. It was either Klopp or Guardiola said something which I thought was so appropriate. It was when De Bruyne was warming up, in training. He was back training and he had the locks and whatever. And I think it was Guardiola said that sends a shiver down the spine of the rest of the Premier League.
Of world football, I think.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
It's true, isn't it? Do you think De Bruyne coming on just had that impact? I mean, look, I thought the quick feet from Oscar Bob for the goal, the
Incredible.
boom.
Incredible.
Clever.
Yeah.
But ultimately, De Bruyne coming on, Manchester City are in that mode at the moment where they find a way. What can you do?
You brought up De Bruyne. So, Eddie Howe, you're saying there are gaps in the squad. And then the best player in the world, I think, the best player in the world comes on.
I think there's 100 reasons why Eddie Howe should be sacked, but the Man City defeat isn't one of them.
I'm the opposite to you. It's really weird.
This is the weirdest video I've ever
The way
made.
they managed the game against City was poor, and I think that they were unlucky with the group of death in the Champions League.
This is crazy. I've never met anybody who I like on whatever metric we discuss here. There is no overlap with us. There is no grey area on the Venn diagram of Newcastle.
If you're 2-1 up against City at home with the atmosphere, you can't lose that game. Maybe you draw. City are a great
That's
side.
the one game that you can lose. What you can't do is get knocked out of the cup by Chelsea.
Not in the way they
what
got
you can't
opened
do is
up.
get knocked out of
Newcastle
the cup.
couldn't keep the ball. Newcastle couldn't keep the ball. They were so poor in the
Newcastle
game.
were 1-0 up in the 90th minute against Chelsea in the League Cup and got knocked out.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable.
Yeah.
Man City can beat anyone,
But
any day, any time.
Mate, the way they lost to City was so
Man
poor.
City is a reason to say Newcastle are doing well.
He displayed a lack of man management of the game. He got schooled, Eddie Howe. He got schooled.
I don't know what to say anymore because you and I are completely poles apart on this. There's no.
So you think he should be sacked? You think he should
be sacked? Of course I do. I don't want it to be Mourinho because I want Mourinho to come to Chelsea. but if I was a Newcastle, if I was not necessarily a fan, although they do like him because of the Bobby Robson link.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he must like it as well. New challenge as well.
If I was the owner of Newcastle United, or even on the board, or had any counsel whatsoever, I just think it's a tap in Mourinho. It's an open goal, Mourinho.
And guess where I'll come back to? Full circle moment. Mourinho then has to manage a club, a bit like Roma. Roma got a lot of gaps in their squad, not a top level Italian club. He's still going to have to manage a second choice keeper, Dan Burn at left back, Almiron up front, Murphy, all these average. Miley's a young kid. He's still going to have to manage those players, and they aren't good enough.
Do you think that it's a bit of a myth about Mourinho and the kids? Like, I don't agree with it. People go, oh, he's not the man for the kids. Like, he really helped Didier Drogba become the player. He really helped Frank Lampard
Drogba was a
become the best
world-class
midfielder.
talent ready to go. Lampard was already,
They weren't world-class, though. When Mourinho arrived. World-class talent, maybe.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe. Do you think he does get sacked? What do you think actually
No, I think they'll keep him to the end of the season. And rightly so.
Hey, listen to these fixtures, right? So they've lost 6 out of 7. They got Villa away next. Did they win that?
No, they lose that.
Okay, so that's 7 out of 8. They got Luton at home.
They might lose. They might draw that.
No, they win that. Sure,
You
they
think?
have to. Well, if they lose that, come on.
No, draw.
No, if they don't win that game, he has to go.
Okay. So you think he's sacked in 2 weeks?
Well, if you assume that he loses to Villa, right? If you assume he loses to Villa, that would be 1 win in 10, is what you're suggesting here, including a Luton home
And out of the cup as well.
You've just gone full. You flipped reverse like Blazing Squad.
How do you know?
I saw it
What,
happen.
you read my mind? What, you read my mind?
As I spoke.
What, you in
went like this,
telepathy?
mate. As I spoke and said the numbers, and you suddenly clocked it. You went, fucking hell.
What, you missed it, Meg?
No.
Am I sitting here saying that the next 10 are easy? No, and he could get sacked if he loses, 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a row.
So you think he's doing a good job, but he could be sacked in the next 2 weeks?
I think he's doing an understandable
doing a really
job.
good job, but yeah, he could go in 2
It's all
weeks.
relative, Royce. It's all relative. I think he's doing a job very, very well relative to the injuries and the gaps in the squad.
He's doing a great job, but yeah, I think he'll go
Chelsea
in 2
should be
weeks.
above Newcastle. You spent about £1 billion on
here
one
we go.
player.
Mate,
You should be.
Mate, you are hilarious. Yeah, I think you actually saw the fixtures when I spelled it out to you and you looked. You actually went, God, it's Rory's right, but I can't row back here. I can't row back, so I'm going to have to go with it.
No, I think he should be kept until the end of the season with a lot of goodwill. If I was the owner of Newcastle, I'd keep him to the end of the season. They're not getting top 4 now anyway. We're looking at next 10
He's
fixtures,
doing a good
Royce.
job anyhow. He's doing nothing wrong. Do you think he'll be sacked in 2 weeks? Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? You've got to keep a bit of goodwill, Royce. You'd sack everyone if you were the manager of Newcastle.
Look, mate, standards. I wouldn't sack Mourinho. They should get Mourinho in.
But Roma just sacked him.
Yeah, Roma had their most successful season for
2 years
2
ago.
decades.
2 years ago.
Yeah, mate,
Yeah, so you have
feeling
to
around
sack
the
him.
Olympico, nothing like it under Mourinho.
Were you there?
So I've heard. Okay, let's try and find like some common ground here. What do you think is the minimum achievement that I will accept and you will accept and the board will accept and the fans will accept? What does he need to achieve? Bearing in mind, they got to a final last year and they made it into the top 4. What's the minimum achievement that is considerable success?
7th. I think 7th just keeps you there. A couple of signings.
7th, no silverware.
7th, no silverware. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying that's better than last season. Obviously, it's not. But based on where we are today...
Is that not regression? That is the definition of regression.
Yeah.
But that's acceptable.
Other clubs have woken up. Spurs have woken up. Villa have woken up. You know?
I don't think so, mate. I really
Even Chelsea have woken up.
Do you know why I disagree here? Because even though you were right rationally, if you'd said when Eddie Howe got the job, in 2 years' time they're going to finish 7th, I think people go, that would be acceptable. But expectations change, man. They've been to a final. They've been to Wembley. They probably should have done better. They've been in the Champions League. They definitely should have done better. 7th, Conference League, off the back of playing Paris Saint-Germain and beating them. Sacked. Tin tack.